just individual people. So I just want to commend you. Keep expressing yourself, and specifically, Dr. Rogers has stated he's going to have more discussion with us, but it's better to hear, I'll be honest with you, no disrespect to him, I like hearing from the people who elect us to be your voice. So thank you for that.
I'd like to make just a very brief comment that it's good that we see, parents that are involved and want to see improvements in the curriculum and various programs that we have throughout the district. This board is utmost in looking and listening to our constituents that are out there in the public and who use our services over here in the district. So please be upfront and honest with your comments to Dr. Rogers and his administration when you meet with him. This board will listen to what is being said in those meetings, and we'll take those to heart with some things that possibly may help improve some of the curriculum issues that you do have some concerns with. So again, thank you very much for your comments, and we'll look forward to speaking with you. I have no more public comment forums, so the next item that we have on the agenda is the 6th grade center IMSA presentation. I'll turn it over to Dr. Rogers then, or Mary Ann Hartley.
Okay, what I want to say is they're getting ready. Just want to say to the public that Board of Education sort of instituted this, I would say, part of the program last year in wanting to have a place on their agenda where some good news that is in the district, whether it's an accomplishment of staff, accomplishment of students, or an accomplishment or an awareness of a program or an event that the schools feel that the board needs to know about, that it could be presented early in the agenda for the board just to hear. And so tonight it's the 6th grade center's opportunity to come and talk to us about a program that they feel very proud about, and that is IMSA, of which Mary Ann Hurley is the principal, and she'll explain what IMSA is and who's here tonight. And before you get started, do you want the board to sit in the audience, or can...
Yeah, otherwise we just put our heads up.
Okay. We need to sit in the audience so you can see the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we are very proud of our IMSA program. I have two very dedicated teachers who have done an excellent job with this program, and we have brought along several of our outstanding students here to demonstrate some of the things that they've learned over the course of being an IMSA. I would like to introduce Ms. Tell and Ms. Ahern, and they will explain a little bit more about our program.
Before we get started, this is kind of going to give you a little brief of what IMSA is and what it does. And then afterwards, if you want, you can come down and see some of the activities that our kids have actually been doing this year and see what we're actually doing at the school. So what is IMSA? If you've never heard of it before, it is an after-school program based on math and science. And this is an inquiry-based program, which means that students are kind of leading this program instead of teachers leading it. The objective is to challenge that top 10% of the class that's already exceeding and kind of needs that extra challenge every day. In order to participate in IMSA, the program has some requirements that are set up for us. The first thing, these students need to be in the top 10% of the class in math or science, and that's how they get invited into the program. Once they are invited, they are required to maintain a 3.0 grade point average for the entire year and also meet our school behavior expectations. In order to get into the program, they have to fill out an application, and included in that application, they need a recommendation from one of their previous teachers, kind of just reiterating that they're a great student. And they have to also tell themselves why they think they would be a great addition to this program, why they are interested in math and science and want this extra challenge for themselves. So that's all part of their application. At the 6th grade center, this is our 4th year we've been doing this program, and we have 26 graders this year, which is outstanding. We meet twice a week after school, and we cover 2 units per year. So we have a unit that starts at the beginning of the year and goes through the 2nd quarter, and then we just started our 2nd unit now, which will take us through the rest of the year. What IMSA allows these kids to do is apply knowledge that they've learned in their classes and kind of take it one step farther. So what they're learning in these math and science classes, pushing themselves a little bit farther with that. They also get the chance to be exposed to new vocabulary and content that we don't offer in the classroom. And it encourages them to work in teams and use those critical thinking skills and those problem-solving skills that we keep trying to push them towards. We also have the opportunity to take several field trips. One field trip that we actually just took last week was to IMSA, and the students love that because they get an opportunity to see what this high school is, what they have to offer themselves in the future, and get a little tour. And they also have some activities for them to show them some more challenges to push themselves. We've also been to several museums and things that correlate. This year we also went to an apple orchard, and they got a chance to relate some of what we were learning to that. They get to use technology for research and participation. IMSA offers a problem of the month, which is just a really challenging problem, and they get to answer that online and submit their answers, and if they get it correct, they are recognized by IMSA and have a chance every month to win a prize. This year we did have several kids who had the correct answer. Unfortunately, they weren't selected for the prize, but still. We also have a yearly parent night at the end of the year, so the kids have a chance to show their parents, what have we been doing? What have we been learning? Why am I putting all of my extra time and effort into this? And we also get a chance to collaborate with the CSK and the IMSA programs for some of the things that we do when we can. So that's a nice thing too. Up here we have on display 3 activities that they have done recently. And if you'd like to take a look at it, you can kind of get a better idea of what these labs are about and what these kids are learning and doing. And they can kind of give you a little mini preview of some of the things that they've done this year. Do you want to explain?
Okay, their first activity is called Amblings of Lydia the Ladybug, and their objectives in this activity were to sharpen their ability to visualize in 3 dimensions, measure different path lengths across the inside surface of a box, and use their collected data as evidence to justify their conclusions. So, one of you show them how you go about doing that.
Took the string and we had to find a certain path to go. One path we did, so Lydia the Ladybug would be in the corner right there, and then she had to reach this top corner. So one of the paths we took was where she could go across the bottom of the box and then go up. And then we would measure the length of that and try and see if it was the shortest path.
What was the shortest path you guys found?
38.5 centimeters.
Can you kind of show us what path that was in the box? Okay, so they went across the bottom of the box and up the top. And the kids tried various paths. They had 6 different boxes that they used, different sizes, and it's really finding the shortest path for Lydia to take without flying from the bottom corner to the opposite top corner. Anyone in the group want to add anything? Okay, hand me the next one. Grab materials so you can show guys. The second one they worked on was called a chicken's playground. The objectives were to construct differently proportioned models of rectangles, calculate the enclosed areas for those different rectangles having a set perimeter, and then examine the effects the different constraints had on the problem. So Farmer John had to build a pen for his chickens. He's got 60 meters of wire fencing for his chicken pen. So they have a small model of the pen, and they tried different sizes to see which one would give them the largest area for their chickens to run around in.
One thing I want to add to this is something to look at. In 6th grade, one of their requirements is to understand what perimeter and area is. And that's what we learn in the classroom. This activity is pushing that and saying, okay, you know what perimeter is, you know what area is. Now you have a challenge to do something with that. So the students had to build different rectangles and find what would give those chickens the biggest pen. If you were a farmer, what would you want to have? Connor, what did you guys find? Excellent. So after they found out the biggest rectangle was actually a square, which then they're pushing that limit one more time, because when you think rectangle, you're picturing your typical rectangle. So it's just taking that one step farther. Yeah. Sure. They're a little timid with it. That's all.
They really practice this, and I know they know how to say this. They're all lost all their tongues today.
Okay, we have one third activity to show you. Hold on one second. Why don't you guys step down?
One of the activities we worked on in our previous unit is called DNA, Your Critter's Chemical Identity. So we were working on a unit on genetics that went along with our trip to the apple orchard. They got to learn how they crossbreed the apples to come up with new strains of apples. But in this activity, one of the previous activities, they had to build a critter and then use what they learned about DNA code to come up with DNA strands for that critter. So part of this was learning about inherited various traits that make us who we are, being able to connect those physical traits to the corresponding DNA code, determining the genetic code for their critter, and then being able to build it. Just explain what you built.
Basically, we used one of the critters that we built from stickers, and we'd used beads to connect all DNA strands using code from the complement. From which alleles connected to make a DNA code, and all the DNA codes made up a complementary code which made up the DNA strands. And the different kinds of DNA represented the different colors of the beads. And basically we used hydrogen bonds to connect all the different kinds of DNA to make the whole DNA strand.
Pretty much, if you twist it, it shows that it is a DNA strand. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
If you want to take a closer look at any of these, I know it's hard to hear and a little difficult to see because they are smaller. Feel free to come up here and take a look at any of these materials. And that's kind of it about what our IMSA program is all about at the 6th Grade Center.
I'd also like to thank the parents that came out tonight with their children. Thank you so much for coming, and thanks for letting us show you our IMSA program. We are very excited about it. And thanks, Mrs. Hirsch, for letting us have it.
Before the students leave with their parents, we would like to take a photograph of all the students who came out tonight. So if you wouldn't mind coming up these stairs and coming to the middle, your principal will guide them up here. And we'd like the board members to take a picture with them also.
It was a box of crayons and papers and everything.
Comments tonight to the students, and that's okay because we need to move on because it looks like they're all getting ready to go.
Tom, you want to be secretary?
I always screw it up. But, hey, you got the card?
Well, it's either you or Kim or Maurice.
Yeah, but the Kim should never been on. Ask her if she'll do it. If she won't, I'll do it.
That's fine.
All I got to remember is, I don't know. What do you do on the card? How do you write who moves and who doesn't?
I just use an M and a 2.
Oh, okay.
Kim, do you want to be a secretary?
Yeah.
Can you be secretary this evening? Because
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Oh, I
Kia's not here and Mary's not here. So I'm asking for a volunteer, kind of. Okay.
So can I still sit here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'll be one of the first things we have to do.
I gotta call you guys names.
Oh, don't worry, there's not that
Do
much.
like David did.
Oh, my God, they're all leaving.
Or
Wait a
whoever
minute.
that is.
Wait a minute. Here comes Nakia.
Oh, you got saved.
Sorry, Kim. Here comes
Here she
Nakia.
comes.
Secretary is here.
Was it something I said?
She's so cute.
Look at that. Perfect
All
timing.
right, there's timing for you.
Hey, and it looks like a short meeting.
This is secretary.
One A.
He was the secretary for 1 minute.
Yeah, we got some clothes though.
I
So
mean, I can make it home in time for body of proof.
And the sad thing is when I was
maybe.
Hello, and how are you?
Hello.
Great. How are you?
the secretary. You know, actually, senior.
Just in time.
Just in time.
All right. Great time. Just perfect. Moved right in. Student council.
Hello, hello.
Okay, we'll move on. I'd just like to, even though everybody's left already, but thank Mary Ann Hurley and the 6th grade center for a wonderful presentation in one of those IMSA's groups. This is a personal note. My nephew was actually in that particular IMSA group 2 years ago, and the difference that he came out with as far as just the learning how to do things and justifying, how you, like for instance with them doing their square measurements, those kind of things and stuff, it gives them a different perspective to take random or nonsensical information and turn it into something that you can use on a daily basis. So, I think that's a very important skill that they're trying to develop there, and I saw that, with my nephew and stuff, and, it's a wonderful program, and I think everybody from the board on down supports those kind of efforts tremendously in our district, so.
If I could just add to the context of it, we actually run 5 programs in the district. We have the 6th grade center, we have 2 at CSK and 2 at the middle school, and we are the only school district in Will County that actually runs this program. I attended a Will County Curriculum Directors meeting back in October, and IMSA was doing a presentation there, and through conversations with our IMSA reps, they asked me to come because they're trying to get more involvement with other districts. So I was happy to go and sing the praises of our teachers and their programs because they're doing a great job with it.
I'm going to concur too. I'm glad Laura said it's because Austin is in the in the 7th grade center there too at the IMSA program, and my son is participating still. And I was going to just probably draw it out of Ms. Tail that when those kids go back to the classroom setting, and she said, somebody may have even asked, or we're thinking, how does this translate into the classroom setting? And a lot of the kids, because it's an after-school program, they want to do something else, not necessarily go to that. But you'll find, and I heard Mike to actually confirm this, that there's scores, in reading, because they're doing like hands-on application, whereby like in some of the science classes, you're not able to get that in depth. So I do agree with Mark for sure that it's something, it's just a tremendous program. And I know we had one student from this district to actually attend the IMSA Academy and is now, I believe, at Harvard, if you can imagine that and got scholarship to Harvard through the IMSA school specifically. So it's a great program, and it's not far, is it Aurora? Or, yeah. So good job.
Thank you.
I'd like to also attest to the program and thank the district for offering the program. I do know quite a few young people involved in the program. And also, like Ms. Sanders said, there is a student, I believe he's at Princeton. But just to know that this is offering, giving our students this opportunity to expand on whatever they are learning in the classroom and putting that focus, because we have a lot of students who love science and they love math. So thanks to the district for opening the door.
Okay. Now we'll move on then and call a meeting to order. Next item will be roll call, and would the secretary please call a roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Coletti? Mr. Hazel?
Here.
Mrs. Sanders?
Here?
Mrs. Stockton? Secretary here. Mr. Rose?
Here. You need to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, do we need to go into a first session of closed at all? I didn't think so. The Next item then is, I needed to get a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Moved.
Mr. President, I have can I ask one question before we approve it?
Actually, we should take a motion and a second to approve it as is, and then if we need to make an adjustment after that, we can do that.
Okay.
So I've got a motion to approve by Mr. Heisel. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Now we can have some comment.
Okay, so I am requesting that the meeting minutes from the policy meeting dated November 11th be removed so that they can be amended, because there are items that were discussed at this meeting that are missing from the minutes.
What page is that?
The November, the meeting?
Is it 4? Is that the one that we're on?
You said November 7th meeting?
The policy meeting, yeah. November 7th, yes.
Page 4 or 5?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's just,
Page 4.
Is it just, I'm listening to you.
is it something that's just incorrectly written or
No, it's not,
typed here?
it's
Or is it-
eliminated, it's not included.
Okay.
There are several things that are not included. Now, let me just preface, it needs to be in it for the record. There are some things even that deal with personnel, and essentially, so that's as far as I'm going to go with it, I guess. So there are things that should be on here. Now, because I did look earlier, Dr. Rogers, I recognize, because we were missing our illustrious secretary, so piecing it together, it was just an omission.
That's fine.
But nevertheless, it needs to, there are items that need to be.
Can you do us a favor? Can you send us both an email of the pieces that you think that need to be added, and then we'll just resubmit it at the next board meeting for approval?
Sure,
All right.
that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that the best thing to do for this evening is to approve the consent agenda without regard to including this board policy, and then that'll be brought back in a future meeting when everything gets taken care of. So
I just had
we need to.
I just had one comment. I don't have the page number up in front of me right now, but when it came to contracts, offering the contracts, the various contracts, that is under consent agreement.
We're not
Okay,
offering.
various contracts. We just said that we was going to post it, the notice to bid in a couple papers. And I think a couple of the contracts did say that, but I think it was one with the lawn care and the chemical that it only stated the South Town. Okay, and I think we said we was going to put it in the Monee Crete Monitor.
We were going to post additional advertisements for the trash removal bid, since last year we had a low turnout for the bids that were submitted.
Okay.
But in terms of all our other bidding procedures, we still just post in the Daily Southtown Star, which is the primary newspaper for circulation in our district.
Okay.
And that's typical, that's common practice, and we don't want to post in multiple locations just because it becomes expensive for all of our postings. That, one posting could be a couple $100. And to do, multiple papers all the time for everything. It usually isn't an issue. We usually get good turnout in terms of people submitting bids for the different contracts. But we did note that last year with the trash removal, we only had one or two, just the one turn in a proposal, which ended up being a good proposal. It was actually a savings for the district. But just in anticipation of that possibly happening, we were going to post in an additional newspaper to try and get the word out, even more than last year.
Okay, and that's what it was pertaining to, the waste contract, that we was going to seek another media form to post our bid. Okay, thanks. All right.
Okay. Any other comments at all? We do need to amend the motion that is on the table right now to approve the consent agenda, less the Board Policy Committee meetings of minutes of November 7th, based on additional information that will be included in a future offering. So that's the motion I'm asking for, so.
Yeah, all I have to do is agree to amend, and I do.
I'm sorry?
Since I made the motion, all I have to do is agree to amend.
Okay.
And I do.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Heisel. Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Sanders. Did you have?
Oh, Maurice did.
He did.
Yeah, I had second,
Okay.
first motion.
So we have a motion by Mr. Heisel, a second by Mrs. Sanders for approval of the consent agenda. So would the secretary please call a roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. The consent agenda is passed with the modification. We do have some donations that happened in the past month, so I'd like to make note of the staff of the entire school district of Crete Monee making a $880 donation to the Monee Township Pantry. It's somewhat different than what we typically get because the staff here is making a donation. I think that's very conscientious of them and good-willing of them, so thank you very much for the staff making that donation. We also received, on behalf of the Early Learning Center, some donations of numerous storage bins for their program from Mrs. Julie O'Reilly. We thank her very kindly for those, and they'll be used in a good way, I'm sure. We also have, on behalf of the Early Learning Center, a thank you for a donation of some tree stumps for their courtyard from Mr. and Mrs. Gustav Bettenhausen. The stumps are going to be used in their reading area, and we thank you very much for that donation. And we do have, I believe that was... That was it. So thank you very much for the donations, and thank you to the staff for their generous donation to the food pantry. So on the next item of business here, we've got action reports where we're going into curriculum and the 2012-2013 calendar change, which will be handled by Mrs. Hirsch. Ms. Hirsch?
Last month, we brought an informational report to you about a proposed change to the 2012-2013 calendar that the board had already approved. And the reason we did that is because we thought we believe we found a way to accomplish what we've tried to accomplish in the past few years, which is to get the first semester to end before winter break and have those final exams before the holiday season, and without changing the structure of the calendar, not adjusting an earlier start, and also not going to two separate calendars, which were two ways that we had looked at as possible solutions to the problem. We've done the calculations, and I think Dr. Rogers presented that information last month, where we've pretty much got the two semesters balanced in terms of first and second quarter being the same, and third's a little bit longer, but third and fourth about the same. And there are several reasons why we think this is a good idea. One, because of our student mobility. We get students that come in wanting to register for second semester early in January, and they've finished their first semester other places, and we haven't finished ours. So those students get put on hold until our semester starts. Also, a better alignment with our post-secondary education, educational institutions like Prairie State, where we have students attending. We also we believe that this will help our students who are applying to colleges, because a lot of colleges have January application deadlines, and our first semester grades aren't finished by then. We also think it will allow us to make some mid-course adjustments, give us a little more time to do that internally at the high school, looking at semester grades and looking at student schedules and making adjustments as needed. And finally, I think that, the other piece to this is that our students typically don't study over the holiday season. So they're coming back, and then we've lost 2 weeks with them, and then we're trying to catch up and prepare them for finals. And we think it's just a much better idea to get it over with before they go out on break. And also, the second semester being a little bit longer, I think is to our advantage because we have so many spring activities that we do that you lose instructional time anyway, so that should help in creating a balance between the first and second semester. So we're recommending to the board to approve that revision that adjusts the semester end date for our secondary buildings.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions?
I'm going to ask it just because you made the statement that most of the kids aren't doing the work. I certainly concur. Just that since they haven't or may not be doing the work, did we make any kind of, is that a given? Did teachers feel like the work that they did receive was substandard or? And were there any, how do I say that, was there any kind of, in other words, so the kids didn't study over the 2 weeks, they got back to school, and your kids who do well historically didn't necessarily do well. Did we make any kind of?
I don't think the issue is that the quality of work that they're asking to do over break is subpar. I think what happens is that they try and end a unit right before break because they know that families are busy with holidays and so they're not asking students to do much over break.
Okay.
And then they come back and they've been off for 2 weeks and now finals are 2 weeks out and there's this intense review that has to happen.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. After all the years I've been doing this, it works best. Every district I know that uses it loves it because what the staff has seen and the faculty have seen is that final grades first semester improve because when the kids take the final exam, they're prepared for it, especially in math and science. That's where the biggest downfall is, simply because you're not using the material. It's lack of practice. In that vein, I will make the motion that we approve it.
Okay, I've got a motion by Mr. Heisel to approve
Then in the same vein,
to approve the change in the 12-13 calendar. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sanders. Do we have any other comments about this at all? If not, then would the secretary please call a roll?
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. The motion to approve the changes to the 12-13 calendar is approved. The next item that we have on the agenda is some administrative updates, which will go right away to Mr. Elrod with the FOIA update.
Good evening. I have two reports, two very brief reports. The first one is a FOIA report. We did have one requester on January 31st via electronic mail who requested copies of the asphalt construction and repair contracts awarded to Pavement Solutions, including any and all subcontractors supporting documentation by Crete Monee School District during calendar year ending 2009-2010. This request was fulfilled on February 3rd, 2012, and all of the above referenced items were completed within the timeline according to the statute. Are there any questions on that particular item? The next item, and there's a handout that each of you should have received by now, has to do with a request, it has to do with registration. It's a request to the board to consider the recommended changes in the amount of dates to conduct registration. The issue here is that currently we as a school district, and there's supporting data that I'll refer to shortly, we as a school district have just given absolutely too many days or dates to our constituents in which to register. Currently we allow 8 days to register families in the district. 5 of those days are regular registration, and then 3 of those days have ended up being late registration. You may recall a subsequent story that I told regarding the late registration where the staff was late till 12 midnight. So that was a double late, if you will, no pun intended. The justification in getting this done, and the supportive data will bear this out as you look at the handouts, and I won't go through all of them, but we did survey surrounding school districts, 5 high school districts and 4 elementary districts. And while they do not meet our exact composite geographically and otherwise, what you will find if you look at the data is that on average, the surrounding districts, both elementary and high school, are offering 3 to 4 days. And in some cases, they're offering no late registration. Those districts, they're for you to see, but they will remain nameless for the record, because I don't want to go on record as calling them out in terms of naming them. So but you can make reference to them. They're named in your document. You've got a couple high schools that are listed that allow 3 days, and there is no late registration in their process. You've got some that after registration is done completely, they only allow registration 2 days a week by appointment only. We've allowed, after registration is completely over and late registration, we've been registering people every day as long as they were coming, which has really caused a heavy weight on the system. It's proved to be inefficient. And what we've learned from doing this for several years is that the more time you give, the more time our constituents take. Also, we have looked at a trend over the last few years in that those who know that we have late registration will wait until late registration in which to register. So also folded within this request is to eliminate late registration, and that we would have as stated by the calendar, we would have enough time to allow for returning and new parents alternating the shifts. There is one change that I would like to notate if you look at your calendar, and because in this particular calendar, the returning families in terms of a late evening have been shorted a bit, and we're going to make that change, that one edit. As you can see, the new registration, they have up to an 8 p.m. They have 2 opportunities to register in the evening that will support a work schedule. And there's that one date there, we're only giving our regular folk returning one late evening. We're going to change that so that it represents the equity that the new parents would get, and it would be the late evening as well. Going further, if you look at week 2, the 6th through the 10th, these dates are strategically and deliberately placed in there as blackout dates, because now it gives us to take all of the people that we've registered for a full week to clean up everything, to be more efficient about transportation, routing, making sure that IDs and all of those things have been taken care of. My goal is to, by the 10th, that we will have all of those things solidified for hopefully the bulk of the people that we've registered, so that we will only go to that next week where we will have 2 days where those who have not registered will register at the buildings for those 2 days for returning families, as is noted there. Also, during that same time, we will have those new to the district who will register by appointment only at central office. So we've looked at the data. We have done our homework as it relates to what we think will now, for lack of a better phrase, force the issue of our clientele to take the dates that we avail them to, and they will come in and register. Are there any questions in terms of the request?
I have a couple questions that I could start with over here.
Okay.
I understand, and I think it's probably pretty cost-effective for us to reduce it from 8 days down to 5 days. The only concerns that I have right now, it looks like, is what's the reasoning behind having 1 day for only new families, the next day for only returning families, and then they're split back and forth? Because I think that adds a lot of confusion in the community as to who has to come those particular days to register. If you made every day where whoever's going to register just comes and registers, why couldn't we do that? Then you don't have to worry about returning and new. You handle both of them, basically, I would think probably the same. New probably takes a little bit longer, but you'd have one line going new, one line going, and it's been a while since I had it registered, so I'm only asking the question.
It's a good question. It's a fair question. What we have found over the years that I've been involved with registration, as a parent as well as an administrator, if you bring in, for instance, all of the returning, the hope is that because they're returning, they have all their documents in play, they know what all the requirements are, and it's a lot more efficient to move them through as opposed to, because we've tried it the way you're talking about over several years when we used to do registration at the middle school. It makes for a lot less confusion and working with a like group so that you can spend more time with, see, new people get frustrated, it's been my experience, when they come in and have to register with returning because they're bounced back and forth. They may come in, they don't have all the documents they need, they have to leave, they have to come back. You've got the returning now who are waiting, who have things that they're supposed to have. And we've tried with 20 some odd stations in play to try and accommodate that. And it's just more efficient that when you allow dates that are separate for new so that you can customize the process just for them, give them the time that they need, and walk them through what it is they need as far as being serviced. And then on the other hand, we can get the returning people in and get them out in a more efficient manner.
I understand that, and I would tend to agree with you there. I'd like to see some kind of way or method that you guys can justify something like that by taking a time thing or something where it shows that, and I don't know how to do it. I'm just asking, if it's administratively too crazy to try to do something like that. I'm just looking for some data in order to prove that.
Here's what we do. Here's what we've done, and I failed to mention this. Ultimately, because especially on the days that new parents register, we end up sending out a school reach message to invite in returning because it's hard to gauge just how many people you're going to have coming in on new. And typically, the first day you have new registration, you have people sitting around twiddling their thumbs that we're paying because there are not a lot of new people that come. Even though we have publicized it all summer, we have sent out postcard mailers late in the summer to catch deliberately the new people to make sure they get in. And we've sent out we sent out newspaper publications throughout the summer earlier in the year. So what we end up doing is inviting in returning families on the days that new families typically would come in when it's real light. So part of what your points you've made is addressed, but we just don't announce it in that way.
So, Mr. Elrod, I see both sides of it, and I've certainly been one called when you were light, for example. Okay. But I'm going to concur I hear you speaking efficiency. Is it efficiency as far as the individual's working cost? And is there some way, because I just have this sticky feeling that you're going to get, I'm looking at these other districts, and in a lot of different things, you guys have taught us that we're not like a lot of districts. So this is going to me, seem like an immediate slam at the beginning. Is there a way that we could reduce it? So it's drastic at 8, but to tweak it, if you will, so that it's not so drastic, because I think we have set somewhat of a precedence, if you will, or if you want to say spoiling, we've done this. And people do wait. I don't think we have the best system, pardon the pun, as far as even advertising. I don't ever see us at the community events that are going on during the summer to maybe say to people who are new in the community. It's kind of hard to get information to newer families. They barely know how to come down to pay their water bill. I'm just speaking in Crete in general. So I just wonder, have we done any statistics, any surveys as to why it is that people take so long? And I would probably even say, if you have 5 kids and you guys say we need to have, I don't know, $1,000, I don't know what it is, $800, I'm not coming to the school, even though you guys are going to say there's a payment plan. I may not rush over here with even a partial payment. Is the economy a factor? Why people aren't just rushing to come over here? Because they still need to pay at the end of the day, right?
That's true, and while I follow your point, they have to pay at the end of the day. However, going back to your point you made earlier regarding communication, and I won't debate the point, obviously, but I think in my opinion, we over-communicate, and because of the timeline that we use and the means in which we communicate to people. We're talking about a process that's going to start almost 6 months in advance of registration. And I don't know how much earlier we can start and how much more we can communicate more than what we're already doing. Every major newspaper it goes into, the people receive out here. Southtown, the Russell publication, it goes up on the website and stays up there the entire, once these dates are solidified, they will go up on the website right away. And they will be up there for the continuum.
But you're speaking of new.
I'm speaking
new
of registration as people move to the district. They get newspapers. They go to our website. They make inquiry. I don't know of any other ways that we could go out and identify who is new to the district in order to communicate to them that we have registration during these time periods, other than the newspapers, the website, and those types of things.
Well, I'm just asking because you're specifying the new people, and they're the ones that are causing the most.
No. That's if I stated that, let me clarify. The new people are not causing us the most angst at all.
Oh, okay.
Nor are the returning. What I'm saying is that if we put the two groups together, which we have done in the past, and we've experienced that combining the groups is what causes the process to become a bit more arduous, if you will, for new people to navigate. When it's just new people, we have people who can address just that group's needs and walking them through and taking the time to really work with them. When you put new and return together, we've learned over the years and the years I've done this, it creates some issues for people. You got returning people who are ready to go, who have to wait their turn in line, just like new people do. And new people don't understand that when you start bumping people ahead of them, and they were there. It's just the nature of a human being.
I would like to say, I personally agree that we have too many registration days. I think that is a lot. So I'm all for reducing it and possibly even once we have this in stone, at the end of the school year, this school year, maybe sending something home that, ahead of time, these are going to be the registration dates. At least parents know into the summer, you're planning vacation or you're doing, whatever. I know that registration is on these dates. And I had the same question as President Rose about why you're doing it, but I get it as you're explaining it. The only thing is with the alternating days, returning families, then new families, then return, and then you're alternating times. People forget. You get the postcards, you throw them out. If we had, a set time for every day, or maybe the first 3 days are, new families, and then the last 2 are, returning families, maybe making it a little bit more easier for our families to remember, this is when you need to come and, whatever. And I concur with you. I feel like, we get the postcards, it's online. I mean, what more, can you do to communicate that we're registering, our kids? So I agree with the 5 days. I felt like it kind of prolonged, and we don't know why people, don't come or whatever. I can personally say for myself, if I'm saying 8 days, I have time, that's just how I look at it.
Right.
Somebody else may say, 5 days, I know I need to get in there at least, one of those days, and then I'm looking, some of the districts have 3 days, so, but anyway, I just think if we can make it a little bit more uniform, at least grouping, the new registrants, together, and then the returning ones, together, that might, help a little bit.
And I understand your point. The one thing that we did, looking at data from a few years back in terms of staggering the hours on some of these alternating days, is because people complained about not having to come up, get off of work a little earlier, or trying to come from downtown and be here before the doors close, which is why we did the late PM. And again, that was based on data we collected in the past to give more flexibility in working families so that they could get on the IC at 5 o'clock in the evening, make it down here by 6:30, and still have some time to come to registration and register their families. That was the reason for giving dinner, what we call after dinner hours, and staggering the process in that way.
Is there a reason why we can't do 8 to 8?
Well, if we did 8 to 8, which makes for a very long day, what we've done already, learning from last 2 years, if we've got 2 separate shifts of people working, because otherwise we'll burn out one shift of people if we work them that long. So we've incorporated this year an 8-hour day, which usually ends up being a 10-hour day anyway. Particularly, you find those that are going to be working the afternoon into the evening shift are going to be working a longer shift than those that work in the morning. So we flip those around so that there's some equity, and we can keep our people fresh when it comes to servicing the people as they come in. I think, and going back to Board Member Sanders' comment relative to it's a shock to the system, I agree to that. I have no misgivings about that. But change is something that I do. I've been in this business long enough to know that, yeah, people will complain about it initially, but what's different about our people, other than demographics and some other things, the people are people. The people at HF, the people at Bloom, the people that you saw who get 2 days of registration or 3 days of registration, they're no different in terms of adapting to change than our people are.
Right.
So we have to, with the economy getting worse and worse, and I had a little sidebar with Dr. Rogers and Board Member Heisel before we started, relative to some of the things the states are looking at doing, and drawing more on the districts to pay for services that the state is talking about eliminating, i.e., they're looking at a plan to have districts pay 100% for transportation. So we have to look at ways, as it relates to our entire system, to make it more efficient. And yeah, taxpayers have to understand, we are offering the best we can what we have, and this is what we're looking for. We're looking for efficiency, but at the same time to give you the quality service that you're entitled to as a taxpayer. I think that this schedule will get that done, and if you look at it even closer, you're finding that it's actually more than the days that are stated when you go and look at the fact that you now have a way for returning parents for those 2 days, if you look at the week before school starts, to actually go to the buildings and register by appointment, register at the respective schools, and get it done that way. So we've allowed for the flexibility. We have not just dug our heels in and said, hey, this is what we want you to do, these are the hours you're going to do it, but we've given some flex in there as well. So we've taken into consideration the pushback that we may have, but I'm willing to process it through, see how it works, and going back to Board Member Hall's comment, looking at next year, looking at the following year in mind, and even people will have even more time to understand these are the dates, this is the registration process, and this is why we're doing it.
Given the for example, August the 17th, that Friday, there's nothing happening on that day, and we have students that has not registered at that point. What are the ramifications?
First of all, let me explain that week, because I think it'll address your question, but it'll also give you some clarity as to why that. First of all, on the 17th is when all elementary buildings post their class lists. They post their class list for each class of all the students that have registered on that day. The days in between, after they have done regular families returning only, give them those 3 days or 2 days and 2.5 basically in which to clean up any kinds of things, finalize the class schedules and post them by the 17th, because they're required by past precedent to have those class lists posted in the window of the school so that parents can see them.
Okay. So, I mean, you will always have that one or two that, for whatever reason, could be a legitimate reason or not, that did not register in a timely manner. So what do we do with that? Do we keep them out of school or what? How do we handle that?
What happens at that point, once we have hit that date, we will still be registering at central office only, but it'll be by appointment only, which means those people who wait as long as some of them do, they will just be inconvenienced.
Okay.
That's the honest truth of it.
So we cannot keep that person.
We're not going to keep them out of school, but they have to get an appointment.
Okay, that's what I. Okay.
And just for the
ultimately, it
record,
would be
Doctor.
the parent keeping them out of school if they don't make that appointment
Right.
to, to
That would
register.
be they would choose to do that.
Okay.
Then we file a
And,
truancy
and
petition.
I just want to concur with both of you. The communication piece is certainly, I think, the factor. When she spoke earlier on, Board Member Hall, I'm sorry, spoke on the issue of getting the information out there timely. And like you say, and I mean, you use the word not to debate, but there's always methods to do things and to communicate, certainly at the end of the year, and even putting this out. And I'm going to go further to say, you guys have convinced me with the attendance in as many meetings as we've been sitting in now, how critical. I see CPS every year. I remember Arnie Duncan used to be big on, I'm walking to school with the kids and letting the news media see the superintendent, if you will, going to the school. So it's important that your kids start foundationally at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
So when you start registering 6 or 7 days after the fact, I mean, but I'm going along with Mr. Brown as well. I just know we're going to have some issues. I agree, changes, of course, necessary, just that we do everything in our power proactively to be responsive to what may be an issue for us as a district.
Absolutely.
And also, if we can group these days, new registration together and then returning registration, and the last one, all families. Because I just think that's going to be easier to remember. Because I can even, think, oh, well, what's today? And, if we can just make it a little bit easier so parents can remember, okay, the first 2 days are new registration, last 2, or whatever, however you guys want to do it, but at least grouping it together. Because to me, that's too much alternating with the days, who's coming when, and then the times. It's like, you want parents to at least, if they don't immediately have access to the information, if they did throw out the postcard, if they can't get to the internet, maybe be able to remember,
That's a good point. And keeping, I like that, because keeping in mind that when I looked at the total enrollment district-wide from last year to this year, we probably pulled in another 300 students, new. So to allow them to have the first couple of days, and then if we need to do on the school reach, to call in to invite regular returning people in, we can also do that. But we can take a look at doing. This is not out in the public at this point, so that's certainly a good suggestion, and it's worth pursuing.
And then I don't know if I think the buildings put up the dates too on their marquees.
Every building in the district will place on their marquees the dates of registration.
For the summer.
Okay.
It's posted as soon as they leave. And like I said, I'm going to say this, to Kim's comment, that there's probably only 1 or 2 things that I can think of that we haven't done, and that is somewhat what she said. There probably are some summer events, and we can look into that. Just to have a table out, just to remind people of registering. But other than that, honest to God, I mean, from, like I said, or like George said, from the marquees, it's out on the marquees all summer long. It's in every major newspaper. We send the postal patron card to every postal patron in the district. It's on our website from the spring all through the summer. We have a hotline. So even if you don't know the school or anything, I know I need to register. I don't know who to call or whatever. There's a hotline number that gives you all the information. We do email blasts. We do call blasts. I really don't know humanly possible other than, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but having, a Goodyear blimp go across all the neighborhoods, with, signs and flags.
You could just walk the street. You could walk the street.
Knock on doors. We could do that too.
Did you register today? Yeah, get T-shirts. You register.
Yeah, there's still a couple more things that we'll try. But
give me each a beer stand
I'm
to
not
show
trying
up
to
on
be
time.
funny here, but I didn't always know the exact dates of registration for my own kid, but this much I knew every year. I had to register my kid to go to school. I also knew that I might not know the dates, but I knew it was always in August.
Mm-hmm.
So when I knew that
always the
July
first one.
was coming around, I took the initiative to just either go on the website or call the school and say, look, when is registration again? Because I forgot. And what are the times and the dates? And then it was all good. I do what I have to do. And if people don't do that, I'm saying, I'm not speaking for the board. John Rogers is saying, shame on people who don't take that much initiative, that if they don't know, and especially if you're a returning parent, to just pick up the phone. You can't tell me that you don't know where to get the information. Now, if you're new, maybe I would accept that, and that's still hard for me to accept. But if I'm a returning parent, I've been here for 3 or 4 years, you at least know to call the district office and say, hey, I forgot the dates, I forgot the times, could someone just please tell me? There's a hotline number, there's people you can talk to, you can go on the website. There is no excuse for returning parents not to know. And I will stand by that. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me. John Rogers is saying, I do not accept a returning parent to have a reason not to know when registration is.
And just the final point with emphasis added, the late registrants are the majority of them are returning parents. The vast majority of them are returning parents.
Mm-hmm. Can I make just a couple little things real quick? And then we can move on if we need to. There is no late registration at all for any returning parents according to this calendar here.
That is correct.
Is there a reason for that? Because everybody that's
There sure is.
returning
And I think
sometimes
it's pretty
works
much
late,
all
too.
we've discussed. Because in essence, when you look at the last 2 dates,
Yeah, technically.
the 13th and the 14th,
That is late.
you can
We're just
quote
not calling it
unquote
a
call those they're late, but they have to go to the building to get it
Yeah.
done. But we're not calling it a late registration for a
I'm just
couple
saying-
different reasons.
I'm just saying one day during the regular registration should be late for at least
Well,
returning.
even the last
That-
date is
that
all
Friday is an
family.
all-district
That's
registration.
Technically
But it's
like
only
a
till
late.
4 o'clock.
It's for everybody.
It's only till 4 o'clock.
What we're gonna do-
You've got, what I'm pointing out is 5 to 8 on Tuesday and Thursday are all for new returning parents.
Keep in mind, we're adjusting the Wednesday to 8 o'clock. So you're going to have 5 to 8 on Tuesday, you're going to have 5 to 8 on Wednesday. We're adjusting that to match, so
Yeah,
that there's equity. Then you've got 5 to 8 on Thursday.
What I'm saying is that there's no late time for anybody with returning parents.
He's changing.
We're changing that. That's what I said earlier. We're
Oh,
amending
okay.
it.
I didn't hear
Friday
you.
and Wednesday.
We're amending that so that we can have the late evening hours for that
Okay.
one day, so that for that Wednesday.
That's fine.
What about Friday?
Not for Friday, just for that Wednesday.
That's
So that
fine.
there's equity in the returning versus the
Cool.
new.
All right.
I get it later. I got it, Mark.
Yeah, I got it.
I understand.
I'm okay. And then, just because I had gotten probably a half a dozen to a dozen complaints last year of how long it took to do, 2-3 hours to get through registration. Is there any way at the end of the registration at a table before you leave that you could fill out a survey? How long it took you, what were your problems there? I think we need to at least listen to some of the people leaving, because they don't know what's going to happen when they walk in the door. So, if we survey them and stuff, and we can do with the data whatever we want to do with it, I think it helps us the next year to plan and do what we need to do.
Point well taken. We've done those.
And I'm sure you've done it before. I'd
Yeah.
just like to try to continue to do that, especially if we're making a change into a 5-day versus an 8-day calendar. We're changing our format and how we're trying to process these. I'd like to at least get some information as to how
Without
successful.
getting into a lot of detail, what you're going to find different as well is from a logistical standpoint. The plan is that registration, particularly for returning parents, will be more fast-tracked. And I'll give you one illustration that will support that. We will pre-print what we used to do in the old days that worked marvelously, and it's the green card. It has all the demographic information on it that they get at the point of contact coming in the door. And basically all they have to do is verify at the point of contact whether or not this information is current, and if so, they can get in and out in probably 3 moves. If it's not current, then all they need to do is change it on the card, have the supportive documentation with them, take it to go in through free and reduce if they have to, which will be optional. If they don't have to go to free and reduce, they're not requesting a fee waiver. They go straight to medical, and from medical to the table to be processed to leave.
Mr. Elrod, one final from me. Okay, I know a couple of years ago, you guys really had a big push for online registration. Whatever happened to that? And wait before you answer that. So we pay for, obviously, we're talking about efficiency, so we're online registering. Is it a possibility that I'm a returning mom, you got to verify all the particulars, but can I go to this, do the online, come to a line, and did that ever work?
It worked, but here was the problem. We didn't have a lot of people who took advantage of online registration. We had people, there was a couple other issues. The ones that took advantage of it up to a certain degree couldn't print out or didn't have a printer or access to print out their receipt, because the whole idea behind the concept was for them to be able to go online and register, print their receipt out, and bring it so that they could do the express checkout. We even set up a kiosk for those who were not able to print at home, and to try and enhance the process a bit more. We have not eliminated that as an option, but the numbers, and I didn't bring that report, but the numbers were very low for people who actually took advantage of registering online.
So maybe now that we're doing this, we might put another campaign out to have that, because that would help.
We have not decided to eliminate it. We need to process that a little bit more logistically, because it may not be. It's worthwhile if they can go on and be technically literate enough to go through the few steps it takes to register online and come to the express line, turn in their receipt, and move. But all they have to do, even if they came, what part of the cumbersomeness of it is this: if I go in to register online and I have to update my information, that becomes a problem for most people, most users, because they can't go in and go through the various tabs and so on and so forth. To no fault of their own, that's the Skyward system that we've had for ever now. Lastly, what I'd like the board to do as we tweak this and enhance it is to consider the timeline for a decision on this by the March 19th, 2012 board meeting. Thank you for your time and attention. I thought it would be brief, but you guys asked some great questions, and I appreciate that.
Tom, you have anything at all?
Are you kidding?
I just wanted to ask.
Remember, some of us are parents, so we know this affects us too. So,
George, I want to thank you.
concern.
I want to thank you for the time like that, simply because this registration process from time to time and year to year sometimes provides a lot of angst for us.
Sure.
That we hear from the community and things like that. So the better we make this thing, the easier it is for everybody. You guys, have it easier on your staff. We have it easier because the parents don't complain and they get through real easy. So,
I'll say amen to
it's a
that.
win-win for everybody when we ask, crazy questions.
And
So
please put it out at the end of the school year this year, because that, like I said, parents can plan, ahead at least. If I know I'm going to be on vacation, maybe, somebody else can, do whatever needs to be done, or at least they know, going into the summer what the dates are.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, if the board does approve this in March, we can have a letter prepared in May that would be put into the report cards, and also we'll just spend the little money that we'll have to spend and actually do a mailing on top of that just actually even send an announcement home by mail just to our parents to say, in case you didn't get it in the report card, or your child, you got misplaced in the backpack or whatever, here's the dates, please plan accordingly in terms of your vacations or breaks or whatever. So that'll just be one more thing that we'll do.
I would also suggest you do it twice in July in the robocall.
Okay.
We're talking about this money-wise, from a financial aspect. And I don't know who's going to be involved in writing the letter, but I just want to have it for record stated that educating, that's the part of communication too, educating these parents and people and the taxpayers that how you get programs into the school is we need to register kids by a certain date, and everybody's screaming about transportation. The faster we have you online and registered, the better the transportation. You don't have to call next week saying my child was left on the corner. So all of the, what do you call them, the pros and the cons, you have that. You can put that in the letter as an incentive to basically say this is why. It's not because we've decided to just, like you said, dig in our heels, but it is a financial matter to this district overall to know the numbers we're having in our school early.
Absolutely.
And one more thought. I don't know if it's possible, but even maybe to post them at the local businesses. If we can ask them, can we put it, around registration time, just putting up a flyer? Because, you go to the grocery store, you go to the Edge, you go to, different places. People are there at the library, whatever, and can see it there as well.
Yeah, in the past, registration and otherwise, our business partners have not had, that's been one of the ways they've supported the district. Putting certain announcements up in their places of business, so that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay. Excuse me. The next item that we have here is old business. Do we have any old business? No. No? No? No old business. We'll be going to new business then, where we're looking to set some future committee meeting dates. And unfortunately, I didn't write down which committees needed to do that, so I think it's...
Well, here's what we need as far as three things. First of all, I want to make an announcement because one announcement is tied to one of the committee dates. And so I know we don't really have an audience, but because it's taped, I think it's important to make this announcement, and if the board wants to say anything, they can. I want to reiterate for the public, in case there may be public that did not see it in the newspapers or on television or on different websites, that last week on February the 16th, Governor Quinn held a press conference to announce that 31 school districts in the state of Illinois were receiving grant money called Illinois Jobs Now to either construct new buildings, to renovate, or expand existing ones. His exact quote was, "This capital funding will help school districts across the state update their facilities and make critical repairs. We must invest in our schools that will allow Illinois students to thrive and create a better future for our state." We are estimated to receive, I believe, $23.28 million. We have received an official award letter to that fact. And although we haven't received a lot of phone calls, but I will tell you there are a few of our parents that are aware of this and have called to find out, to just have more clarification about what this is about. Tomorrow, unless the board has an objection to it, we want to make the announcement public, to be transparent, to put it on our website, to basically allude to the press release that Governor Quinn put out to the public. We'll probably have a link to the press release, plus a little blurb about it. And the reason why I'm making this announcement prior to the committee meetings is because at the next Finance Committee meeting, we would like to discuss this with the Finance Committee or any of the board members who come, if the whole board wants to come. That's, you know, the board's pleasure, but I know for sure we have plans, me and the administration. This will be the main thing, if not the only thing, that we talk about at the next Finance Committee meeting. I would like to set the Finance Committee meeting first, because when it is the normal date for the next committee meeting is scheduled, I believe, Bob, is it the 7th of March or is it the 14th? Because, okay.
March 7th.
The problem with the 7th is that I'm going to be out of town that week for 4 days from the 6th through the 9th, and so I really want to be at this meeting. I feel it's critical that I am there. So I'm asking if we could have the meeting either the week before or the week after. And again, that would be up to the chairperson and the committee members minimally, but that's my first request.
Well, the week after, I'm out of town.
Okay.
Week before.
I'll be there, I just need to, if we keep it on a Wednesday, so the Wednesday before is fine with me.
I'm fine with really any time.
29th.
So is the 29th okay with the committee members?
Yeah.
February?
No, that'd be March.
Can I ask?
Is it March? February. Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
It would be next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, would we be ready by next Wednesday?
We'll be ready. I won't have all the supporting information at hand, just because there's different things that, you know, Daniel's getting some estimates from architects and that type of thing. But I mean, I could pretty much present it tonight and, you know, get the point across. It's just the final product wouldn't be there. But I think there's so much to go through that, like I said, I mean, I can get through the most important points, and then if there's some questions, you know, we could follow up a week later and send that out.
Well, here on the 7th. I tell you what, you know what I could do on the 7th? I think what is most important to me is that we could have a meeting when it's scheduled, and where I am, I can call in. There is something that I want to say to the board before you get deep into a discussion. Because I already know, you know, you and I have talked, I pretty much know what's going to be presented, but I think it's very important that I open the conversation, you know, by conference phone call into the meeting, and then I do trust you, as you know I do, you and Daniel, to have the conversation with the board around the data and the recommendations, so we can do that.
As long as you're comfortable with that, you know, I mean, because we're offering to do it the week before, too.
Yeah, but I also am hearing, Bob, I really want all the information to be there. I don't want to have this meeting if we're not going to have all the information.
You know, whatever's going to make the meeting more productive for us, you know, like
Yeah,
that. So
well, it would be
that's
most
fine.
productive then if we keep it on the 7th, and then I'll call.
7th.
John, I would ask just one thing, that when we make the announcement on the website, let her talk to anybody, stress that it's pending not only the vouchering of the money by the governor, but the release of it by the comptroller.
That's true.
Because if Judy Bartopinka doesn't release the money, it doesn't mean anything.
That's exactly right. Because I think the thing I do want to stress, it's not money in hand yet. So that's a very key point. I don't want people to think that we have $23.2 million in the bank, because we don't.
Well, what's different in the letter that was just recently sent as opposed to what was sent to us in December
If you've been in the
timeframe?
state of Illinois and worked with a school district for this many years, until the money's in your account, you won't have your
But
money.
I'm saying, what is different? It looked like it was the
Yeah.
same letter.
I think the difference
Per
is,
word.
well, here's the difference. I think what the difference is two things. We'll call, or Bob, I don't know if you've already made this call, but what we were told, we were actually called by the governor's office. Now that alone is a huge thing, because They also called our state representative, Tony DeLuca, because they wanted the representatives to sort of get credit for money coming into their congressional or their state district. The mere fact that the governor did a press conference, I don't think that he would have made this much of a fanfare if the money wasn't there. And second of all, we were told over the phone, now again it's unofficial, that the bonds were sold. That the bonds actually were sold. So, meaning that the whatever funding mechanism, because it was funded through capital development bonds that were sold, that the money is in hand at the state, and that it's just a matter of we're supposed to get a U.S. mail letter with instructions, and that didn't come with the award letter. That's actually going to say, now here's what you need to do process-wise in order to be able to obtain the money. And we haven't gotten that yet, but that's what is supposed to be the difference, because I don't think Quinn is about embarrassing himself in the middle of possible some elections for some of his colleagues, his fellow Democrats, to make this kind of announcement and then to find out it's not even true.
It's not true.
Yeah, I don't think he would do that. So I do think there's some validity around it. I do think that we are going to get the money, but I do think it does need to be stressed when we tell the public the money is not yet in hand, and let's not go too far with thinking we're making decisions around money that doesn't exactly exist in our bank account yet.
Okay.
All right. Did we put in a call? Let's put in a call if we haven't, just to verify that issue that the bonds were sold.
Right.
All right. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Finance meeting then for
So
March
the finance
7th.
will be the 7th at the regular time, and I'll just call. I'll call in. If I can stay on the phone call for the whole time, I
Okay.
will, or at least for key points. There's a couple key points I want to make sure is made. The second committee meeting that needs to happen is we did get our Press Plus issue. So that, plus there's a few other policies that need to be reviewed just based on conversations that we've had with IASB, our board workshop, some things that have come up over the past couple of months. So we need to set a policy committee. Now, I know Mary's not here right now, but one of our other co-chairs are. And so I don't want to set it until we can talk with Mary and make sure that she can make it. But I would like to ask Board Member Sanders, is there any particular date that, preferably March, yes. Like the 14th?
Or February.
Next week.
February? Do you want to do that? Does the policy committee want to do next Wednesday? I'm around. All right. Well, all right, so we'll put it down tentatively for the 29th. And we'll check with Mary, and if Mary says okay, Terry will put out a email to all board members just to let you know that it will be the 29th. And we'll send the packet out to you also by email.
6:30.
6:30, yes. Next week, Wednesday.
Same thing, finance, 6:30.
Finance is 6:30 the following Wednesday.
Okay.
Now, the third and final committee meeting, and I need for the education committee members to perk up your ears and look at your calendars. I'm going to, I already know one person who I think is on the education committee and has already said the 14th is not good. This is a need to have a meeting to update you. We wanted to invite someone who works, I guess the best way to put it is in conjunction with the Regional Office of Education, our Professional Development Alliance, and the Office of System of Support. Is that correct? All of those things would be about right for Chris? And technically ISB too. To talk about the new requirements for school and district improvement planning, because the board has been very interested in school improvement plans and parent involvement and things of that nature. plus the fact that OCI wanted to talk with Education Committee about some possible mid-year reports that we can begin to develop for the board that would be sort of mid-year reports, rather than just having the one annual one that we have in the beginning of the year, and then we have a discipline committee report at the end. That we thought it would be nice to have a mid-year update too, but we want to talk about it conceptually first. So I had to ask the person that is the guest what dates were good for them, because they're very busy, and the only 2 dates that they gave me, other than the 29th, which is already taken up now, is March 14th or 15th. So that's 3 weeks from now, either on Wednesday or Thursday. So to be honest, I might have forgotten everybody who's on the Education Committee other than Nakia, because I know that she was the primary. Nakia, Maurice, and Tom. And Mark? Okay. Carrie, what did you say again? I'm sorry. Maurice, Nakia, Tom. Okay. Tom, you can't make the 14th, right?
I can't make the 15th.
Can you make the
either.
14th or the 15th?
Can't make the 14th.
Can't make the 14th either. Can you make the 15th, Tom?
What time?
6:30.
I don't know.
3 Wednesdays in a row.
Oh, wait a minute, wrong month.
He's going that week, right?
Yeah, I'm gone part of that week. I don't know if I can make it that night or not. I can try.
Okay, Maurice, the 15th, what does that look like for you? Okay. Well, why don't we set it for the 15th, and Tom, if you can make it, that'd be great, and if you can't, let's...
You'll think of me.
Yeah, we'll think of you in a very fond way.
I'm sure.
That's the 15th now of March, that's a Thursday, so that breaks our Wednesday streak, but we'll have it on Thursday. Thursday at 6:30. And it'd also be at Sun. Is that good for you, Laura? I just thought about it.
No.
Okay.
It's
okay.
fine.
All right. So can
Come on,
you do me
Laura,
a
beg me up on
favor
this.
and let Chris McAfee know tomorrow that Thursday, that was one of the dates that she did give us, so hopefully she will not try to turn around now on us. And the only other thing that I had under new business is I did send out, I think it was in the last FYI to the board, about the high school, and they proposed to me, in fact I have it right here so I'm not inaccurate in what I tell you here. They're basically saying that the total amount of fees for the high school that is outstanding, meaning it's behind, is $289,000 roughly of fees, of which $133,000 is owed by juniors and seniors, and if you just wanted to break it down, juniors and seniors, juniors about $64,000, seniors $69,000. The proposal is to have 2 gateway points now for collection. One is always graduation, meaning, you need to take care of all debts before you exit for good, and then we can never, get a hold of you because you're out of the system. And the second one now would be prom. I'm in favor of this because prom is not, a required event. I mean, it's tradition, certainly, and it's by tradition that almost everyone who wants to attend should attend. It's a great, passing of, rite of passage for high school students. I understand the importance of it. But I also know that we're not asking people to pay all of their fees. We're just saying be caught up. Because there's people who are on payment plans and haven't paid one dime since, August. And usually it's divided into, thirds, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly. But whatever the plan was, some people just haven't paid anything. And basically all we're asking is that you are paid up. Now, again, the reason why I felt, I could have made this decision, but there are some decisions that you don't make without knowing what the pleasure of the board is, because as you well know, you put something out like this, you're going to possibly get phone calls as board members. You know that. And you may have a few angry people show up at a board meeting. And so I don't want to be out there by myself. So it's either we agree to this, or I tell the high school that we, the board, and it wouldn't be anything on you, it would just be the board cannot at this time support that position, and that'd be the end of it. I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze it or, try to, dissect it. I'm just going to say the board can't support it at this time. And they don't have to have a reason. It's just, that's the way it is. So.
Should I start?
Right.
I don't agree with making the students pay their fee prior to going to prom on a couple reasons. One is it's not the students' responsibility to pay their fees, it's the parents' responsibility to pay their fees. And in times of the economy going on the way it is and stuff, some families may have some rough financial things happening to them. I just don't see that happening. There's too many students that are also in free and reduced fees that probably would like to go to prom and may want to go to prom. I don't think that that's fair, that one group of students shouldn't pay anything in order to be able to attend prom, and you'd still have other groups that probably could pay some fees, but they won't be able to go because they didn't pay their fees. I don't think that's fair at all. And I just want to go back to, it's not the kid's responsibility to pay the fees, it's the parents' fee. And I don't think that they should be punished for something that is kind of out of their hands. Prom is one of those few things that really happens for certain people in the high school that they'd like to attend. They have memories of that, whether they're good or bad, for the rest of their lives. I know that there's been certain people that haven't attended prom that I know of, that I've talked to, that regretted not being able to go or not regretted not going. So it's just my opinion. I don't believe that the fees should have to be a point of contention for going to the prom. Of course, for graduation, or something else like that, that's important, but I don't think that we should hold somebody, to task for being able to go to prom for that.
I'm going to say that I definitely can concur with some of that. I want to make my statement is, I wonder what we've been doing as adults, because you spoke about them not being adults. As the district, we talked about registration earlier, and people running in here to get on a payment plan. I mean, it's good to be on a payment plan, but are you going to? At the end of the day, we want all of the money. So here we are in March, prom is in May. Again, we're going to get backlash, and change is necessary, that's fine, but again, it's so late to now suddenly say this. Do we have a system in place in general that we contact you? Do we have a collection agency to say, are there other consequences? This just seems considerably harsh. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can't get it back. And of course, punish the parent for not taking care of their responsibility, and here the kid suffers. And here's the other thing, when I read it earlier, I did consider, they're going to spend $800 on a dress. I saw that for myself, a couple of years ago. I can't believe it, but $800, maybe the fees are merely $800. And so then the question becomes, what's the priority? Are we the people who decide what the priority should be? Let's say, okay, but can we decide that sooner? Can we decide it with other things, smaller dances, things that are less monumental? I think we understand that we can get them, if you will, for lack of a better term, on prom, because we know they want to attend that. But it's a lot. So I wonder whose due diligence it was, and that needs to be addressed for years to come, and even as we deal with this, because somebody's going to ask us that. Whose due diligence was it to manage and make sure that these funds are recouped? You don't just have a payment plan indefinitely. You have a payment plan, and it is due on the 25th, and if I don't see it, then maybe you can't even participate in some other things. I mean, but prom is huge. That's just my thought.
I'll step in on the other side of the coin. I think if you've got obligations, you pay them.
Sure.
And into every life, a little disappointment falls. I mean, we've all been there, and we all know it. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you're getting an $800 dress, I don't think the kid's paying for it. Mommy and Daddy are. Well, they better learn how to prioritize their money. I have no problem with it.
I would say that I agree that it is too late now to say this, to our parents. Also, I agree with Mark that why punish the kids because the parents have not or cannot pay a balance. Again, I agree with Mrs. Sanders that how is this going to look to our community as far as the message that it's sending is, aha, I got you. Everybody wants to go to prom. Aha, we have you now. Now you can't go to prom. And again, this is something big in the lives of our students. I just think, maybe there's a different way to go about it. But I just think that it kind of just leaves a bad taste, I'll say. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe there's a different way to go about collecting the funds. But mostly, I just think it's too late. I think we kind of, do things, because even being a parent of a senior now, you have in your mind what you need to pay. And then now, if I would have to look at my child and say, you can't go to prom because I can't pay that, whatever enormous bill, and this is something they've been looking forward to. A lot of kids pay for prom on their own. They get an extra job or whatever they need to do, save up. They may even started saving up last year. And then now to crush their dreams, somebody has already bought a dress. Somebody's already put a tuxedo, or whatever, on reserve. And to say now, okay, you know what, you can't go because your mom didn't pay is I think it's not good.
Yeah, Dr. Sanders, I'll call you Dr. Sanders, Dr. Rogers, and the board, we do have expenses to pay. We operating going into next year with a deficit budget, and I was looking at last year's budget, and I believe the numbers are, $75,000 to replenish the books that was not paid for by the students, lost books or not returned books, so on and so forth. So we absorb that cost. And I don't know what the past years has been with trying to collect these different fees. I would imagine we probably found ourselves in the same kind of boat. So do we continue to absorb this? And how can we operate? I don't know the answer. I don't know if going in and with the issue of not preventing or allowing the students to attend prom is the answer, but we cannot continue to absorb costs like that. It's not sustainable for the district.
Okay.
Okay, I think what I heard from the board is, as far as a majority, I didn't hear anyone other than one board member flat out just say that I could endorse it. So I believe the pleasure of the board is to table this, and so I will tell the high school that for now the board cannot support this proposal. And like I said, if they ask why, I'm just going to say they cannot support the proposal. That's my answer.
I would strongly suggest that because it is still in February, that we try to come up with a plan. And I think that there's already a lot of plans out there to try to use other methods to collect these dollars. I think that we'd be prudent to do that, and the sooner the better to try to do that. But I still believe that, the prom, holding them over their head is not the correct way to do it.
Yeah, what we'll do is this. As you well know, we're going to eventually be talking about budgets and revenues and expenditures. And on the revenue side, I think that we will come to you with a plan that has several options as to what we could do. Someone tonight brought up the issue of collection agencies. Just so that you'll know, this has been discussed with the board before, but I remember this as clear as day, that there's two different types of collection agencies. There's the kind that basically sends threatening letters and that's it, and then there's the kind that will actually report you to a credit bureau. And I remember at that time the board did not want people's credit to be adversely affected, so they didn't want to do the one that was more severe. They just wanted the threatening letter one. And I will tell you, for the cost of using that service and the amount of revenue that we gained as far as people actually paying their fees, wasn't almost worth the cost. It just, we did get some dollars, but it just wasn't enough. And there's other things that we can explore that we'll bring to you. We'll talk to other districts and so on. So we'll bring you a plan, and let's have a discussion about it.
John, if before you do that, can you, I mean, not before you do that, but just can you answer, because I'm curious, who, or if you can't for personnel reasons say whom, but what responsibility, whose responsibility is this to collect? How has this gone on when we're not addressing the performance?
I'll let Bob talk about that. I do believe that letters are sent as far as monthly or quarterly bills are sent. As far as phone calls, I don't know about that, but I'll let Bob talk about how the billing is done.
Families will find out what they owe when they register. They'll get a fee statement at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. And if they don't pay their the fee, if they don't send any fee statements in, their account is then handed over to one of these collection type agencies that then send them a series of letters. After 4 letters, the account is then dropped because there's really no further recourse. I mean, you could just keep sending them 10 letters if you want, but so I mean, we go, and then what will happen is the next year when they come to register, they would have gotten 3 fee statements the previous year, probably 4 letters in the mail from this collection agency. Then when they come to register again, they'll find out again at registration what they owe, and then they'll get 3 more fee statements that year. So, I mean, they could get 20, 30, 40 notifications in the mail over the course of, 5 or 6 years. And if they just don't pay the fees, there's nothing that we can do to force them to pay other than withhold certain privileges. Like the district has withheld certain privileges in the past, and those have changed from year to year. But according to Illinois laws and school code laws, there's not a lot of enforcement that we have to collect these
The only
fees.
enforcement that you have, that I think one of the reasons why we didn't go be reported to the credit bureau is because I think there was some sort of case law where someone tried to sue a district that tried to do that, and I can't remember the results of it. And I'm not saying to do that. All I'm saying is it is pretty clear that the state doesn't really give you a whole lot of tools to collect fees with, except for withholding extracurricular activities, which they do make very clear that there are activities that you do not have to allow students to attend because it's not a part of their basic education. And so that just becomes an issue with the board and the community. I do understand the issue of the lateness of the hour. I would feel extremely bad if I knew that there was a young lady or a young man that had been saving money, and because their parents couldn't afford to pay fees, now all of a sudden they have to be penalized, and they worked an extra job and they went and bought the dress, and now they can't go because of the situation that their parents are in. I understand that. But I am saying that I do think, we do need to have the discussion, and if we ever decide to do anything different, then I do believe we just need to let people know way ahead of time and just say, before you invest too much money in thinking that you're going to attend certain things, just let's make sure that you're at least caught up with your fees. Because like I said, with this, we're not saying pay all your fees, just be caught up. So. But I'm okay with what the board is telling me, and I will express this to the high school with the idea that the board is willing to explore things, but it's going to have to be right now. They just feel that it's too late to make this decision now when it should have probably been made a lot earlier. So.
And then too, do we know how many students this would affect? Because I'm thinking if it's a large amount of students, then that now in turn affects the prom and you've reserved space for so many people, and, does that then affect everything that they've done, all the things they've bought, in anticipation of so many students coming to this event?
Yeah, I don't have, I just have the dollar amounts, but that's a good point. I don't have how many students that affect, but I'll get that number because I would be interested in that myself. Because actually, if they haven't thought about it, they might be shooting themselves in the foot, because if you're talking about pretty much the whole junior and senior class,
Nobody's gonna go.
no one's going to go. Then you won't have a prom. You can just write prom off the list.
John, just as a compromise too, because, like Tom said, there's two angles to this. There's people need to take care of business. If not only, because these letters going out, oh my God, 4. Even if you use this opportunity to send something, like say, strongly, just strongly, you're not going to prom, but something strongly at this point, because I guess I would be inclined, I'm just trying to think for myself, I don't want to risk the potential of my child not being able to participate. And there's still a lot of events. I still think you can utilize some of the smaller events to accrue. I don't know the dollar figures as far as, if one mom owes 50, I need $10 before the October ball or whatever, $10, and otherwise the child, for something like that, again, and these kids may get on their parents to say, I want to go to this thing. So, we need to, time is, of the essence, but I think even at this late date, we could possibly, if it's, what was the cost again?
Well,
200 some thousand? If we got 50,000 in, we do need revenue, but something.
I think that what we could do legally is you can't add on things at this point. We'd have to do that earlier in the year. When the registration, we hand out the handbooks, it'd be something in there like, if you don't have your fees paid, you're not eligible for, and list all the things they can't go to. And I'd start out with graduation and prom, and every junior and senior would be on their parents' backs. But what you can do is in the letter stress that you will not participate in graduation. And it's really funny. These kids owe all this money, parents owe all this money, along comes graduation, it falls from heaven.
I think too, with registration that we're talking about earlier, that, you can include a little sheet that includes those kind of messages, at registration, and you sign up to pay your fees, that you get this and say that if you don't pay this by a certain date or whatever, you will be subject to not being able to go to prom or graduation unless your fees are paid up. They'd know that when they sign the bill, they get the receipt, and you give them a piece of paper like that too, so.
And then you have to be mindful too, like I was just saying, that you are singling out a certain group, because it's not just high school students, it's elementary school. So how would you go about that? High school could say, well, why are you all, pinpointing us? What about the elementary?
I agree. I don't want it to sound like whatever plan is presented, that it's only going to be targeting the high school. I think it has to target the whole district. And I do think there are things, not a whole lot, but there's a few things at the elementary that you could put on the list as far as possible things to consider being either withheld or maybe, in our talking with other districts, we'll find some very unique strategies that don't have anything to do with penalizing students from anything. I don't know what they are right now, but we can talk.
We'll suggestions.
Right. Mm-hmm. Just one last announcement. I know it, but it's not that late. But this truly is the last announcement.
You said that 3 times.
The high school athletic department just wanted me to know that I think it was just this weekend. I'm not sure, so forgive me. Austin Rosenfeld of the class of 2012, I believe, was only the 3rd student in the history of the high school to place at the state in a wrestling meet.
Good.
So in the IHSA 2A state meet, which was held last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, he was in the 285-pound weight class. He placed 6th in the entire state. So 6th in the entire state. The only other people who placed was Donnell Franklin in 2000 at the 171-pound classway, he also placed 6th, and Adam Caldwell in 1985 is the next time we had someone place in the 138-pound classway. He placed 2nd in the state. So, Austin, congratulations to him and his mom and his parents. 3rd person in the history. You know, our athletics at the high school are really, they've done some awesome things here lately, and we really need to be proud of that our fine arts and our athletics is really coming along, and we're hoping that it'll have a nice spill into the academics, because that's the next thing that's just has to pull itself up. Has to, so.
I would like to say that I was at the wrestling finals, state meet, or all of that, whatever. And I did see Austin wrestle, and I was actually excited to see the team there. And just to even make it to the state level is a lot, because when I think about, especially in individual sports, it's one thing to make it as a team, but when it's, you one-on-one, working your way through the ranks and then making it to state, I think it's an awesome accomplishment. And I saw the students throughout, the 3 days, and very respectful. They recognized me, and I'm like, oh, okay, but I did get to talk to them, and they were very excited to be there, and I did let them know that, I was proud of them.
Hey, Nakia, did they recognize you as a board member? That's an inside joke between me and the kids. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yes, they did. I was very shocked. I'm like,
Okay.
Anything else then for new business? If not, do we have a need to go into close, I believe?
Can I ask one thing?
Was requested.
Dr. Rogers, excuse me, President. Dr. Rogers, those questions I asked you earlier.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Can we do it next time or do it
No,
now?
we can do it now because I want to do it. Forgive me, Mr. President, one of the board members sent me an email and asked if there was 2 questions that could be addressed under new business, and I forgot to
Go ahead,
tell you.
not a problem.
Mr. Brown, could you ask the question?
Oh, okay. One of the questions was, I've been talked to recently by quite a few constituents regarding illegal, I guess this question is directed to you, Mr. Elrod, regarding illegal students entering into the school district, and just what is the plan, or how are we combating that issue? That's one question. And the other question is to Dr. Rogers, as far as the truancy, that we had a high level of truancy in the high school, and just kind of how are we going forward with an action plan to mitigate that?
I'm going to let Mr. Elrod deal with both of them, because actually he does deal with both truancy and student non-residency issue.
Relative to your first question, we have hired, and we typically hire an investigative agency, private, to look at the scofflaws who have come through registration. There are 2 things that happen that adds to both of your questions. One, we have an unusually higher number of homeless people, or quote-unquote people claiming homeless, that come to our doors over the last several years. Obviously, under the federal legislation, the McKinney-Vento Act, we cannot turn anybody away who comes to us indicating that they're homeless. They don't have to come with any documentation in hand whatsoever. However, what we do tell them, and what's in our documentation, is we do reserve the right to spot check based on trying to secure the proper documentation at some point once they have been established. So we do reserve the right to go through and look at the cases that are more prevalent and do investigations, residency investigations, to make sure that they are in fact living within the district. We do that with not just homeless, we do that with all. But contributing to your question as to the perception that we have a higher number of scofflaws, I think if you look around in our area, you're going to find the numbers are increasing in all school districts. But we do vigorously look at the number of letters that have been returned mail. We look at patterns of kids when we run attendance who are routinely late for school. That means they kind of gives us a red flag that they're routinely late for school, and they are accorded bus service based on the address that they have, that they're being dropped off somewhere, or they're being brought to school. So we look at those who run the higher numbers, and we try to go after them first because it gives us some hint that they may or may not live in the district or live in the district part-time. So we do have an investigative agency that is actively pursuing those individuals, and we pay them on a case-by-case basis. It's not like we have to enter into a long-term contract for a certain amount of money. It's a case-by-case basis, and it's a nominal charge.
Have you been successful in identifying anyone recently?
We have. We have been successful in identifying someone who cost us singularly quite a bit of money.
Excellent. Okay.
As far as truancy, I want to bring to the board's attention and remind, in some cases, some board members who may know this already, we no longer have a regional truant officer. We have not had one for the last couple, 3 years. When the state started cutting back, that was one of the sections that they completely cut out. We used to have assigned to our district a full-time truant officer. We no longer have the ability to get after people as aggressively as we've been in the past. Then we are also strapped by the statute. If they're anything from kindergarten up through high school, and a kid is not a high schooler who is 22 approaching 23 years old, we can't just inadvertently throw them out of school because they don't come to school. Statute that will not allow it. Now, we've done some aggressive things at some point, what we have been able to do, which is legal, is that after they've hit a 10-day mark and they have not come to school, we drop them. But if they come to re-enroll, we have to re-enroll them. We cannot keep them out of school. So again, we have limitations under the statutes. We do try to pursue them as aggressively as possible, particularly the high schoolers. You made a statement earlier before you asked the question that it's your perception or you understand that there's a higher truancy rate at the high school. Mm-hmm. We have truants across the district. Okay. The number, I don't know if the number is higher at the high school or not, but we have kids who are truant across the district, and we have a lot of kids, believe it or not, who are truant at the lower levels, and these are the ones that we look at who are routinely late. Truant is late to school. We have a lot of kids who are being dropped off to schools who are accorded bus service, and these are the ones we look at who probably are being dropped off late to school because they're being driven from someplace outside the district. So we look at them.
So that $300 or $400 that we are losing, is that based on the total district truancy, or is that just the high school?
When you say the three,
I think we're losing anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000. Because of the
if you're talking, you're probably asking another question. So just to clarify, you're talking about ADA.
When you say ADA?
ADA is average daily attendance.
Yes.
General state aid.
That particular figure that you quoted could be across the district. It could be, but the first 3 months. Let me say this: the first 3 months are when we actually get to capture pretty much the greatest amount of ADA that we're going to get for the entire year, because that is the high time that people are coming to school. I cannot charge that totally off to the high school. Again, going back to the statement I made earlier, there are a number of students, K-8, who do not come to school regularly during that first 3 months of school either, for whatever reason. Maybe they're scofflaws, maybe they registered and then moved out of the district. There are a whole lot of factors that come into that. But I just can't attribute that entire amount to the high school, although I know that based on data that you guys have already looked at, that figure is high.
Progress.
It's a work in progress.
What I'm going to say about, I'm sorry that I have to excuse myself for a minute, but if you're talking about the $300,000 figure, that was mentioned to the board related to a personnel matter at the last board meeting, if you know what I'm talking about, that has been addressed, and I can share that with the board in an FYI. We had a meeting with the high school administration, myself and Bob, and we met with 3 of the administrators there. The principal was one of them, and we outlined about 6 or 7 things that needed to be done to bring that deficit down, because it is true that we were losing and are losing money at the high school if they don't tighten up some procedures. So I can share that with the board. In fact, I had planned on sharing it with the board in this FYI this week for reasons you'll see when you see the FYI.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Elrod, can you give me clarity as far as homeless students? You have to claim homeless status in the district that you are already residing in, right? You can't move into a district and say, I'm homeless. Can you?
You can sleep on a park bench.
So you can move into the district and say, I'm homeless,
Absolutely.
but you
can.
the previous district that you were at, don't they have a level of responsibility?
That's a great question, and here's the answer to that. Once we have established, if we can establish where they came from, then as far as the transportation costs, if we are transporting them, or if their parents choose to transport them or whatever, the district that they originated in is responsible for 50% of the costs in transportation. Doesn't have anything to do with their schooling and paying their bills and other things that we've discussed earlier. But when we have tracked that vigorously, and we have taken in quite a number of dollars since we hired a homeless liaison coordinator who is now one of our counselors, and she still serves in that capacity as part of her job requirement. But I think we probably do a better job, and coming from the ROE and their plaudits that we were given a couple of years back, we do a much better job in tracking our homeless population than most surrounding districts. And we have collected quite a, I would say several, let me put it this way, tens of thousands of dollars over the past few years, because we've made a concerted effort to track them. I've taken 3 to hearing myself, all the way up to ROE, who were scamming us, and we were able to get rid of them. And so we've done some aggressive things in that regard, but it takes a long time. It takes a while, but what we've done is, in terms of that whole accountability piece and contacting those districts where they originate from so they can pay their fair share, that is a big step in collecting zero, rather than collecting zero from those districts. And we have to, conversely, if they originate in our district and they go somewhere else, we have to pay our 50% fair share to the district that receives them.
Okay.
So if someone says, I'm on the park bench, we cannot ask questions.
We have to service them.
Are we concerned that that they don't have, do we offer like information on shelters or anything like that?
I actually use park bench as a, metaphorically, so to speak. But because the law basically is, if I make my residence in your district, wherever it is, then you're responsible for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I believe we have to, for a closed session, I need a motion to go into closed.
For the reasons of...
For the reason of, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
personnel, litigation, and I believe collective bargaining.
Yes.
Those 3. I need a motion to go into closed.
I move.
Moved by Mr. Brown,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sanders. Secretary, please call roll.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. We are in closed.